I'm troubleshooting right now. Huh. Just trying to figure out why Restream is not streaming it. Interesting. Is it streaming it now?
Let me refresh your page. Yeah, now it is.
Alright, awesome. Make sure you have the volume off, otherwise it's going to do that lagging thing.
Good.
Okay, hold on, let me refresh this. Okay, well, I don't know what's up with Facebook, but you said it's streaming?
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so okay, sorry, I'm just trying to just make sure. Okay, well, I guess it's streaming to YouTube and streaming to Facebook, so hopefully it's good. I'm not gonna mess around with it anymore. I'm just gonna get into it. So we've got you on the line, so let's get into, I guess, the news that I really want to talk about, which is, have you heard the Wall Street thing with these Redditors?
You mean what they did with GameStop, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You heard about it?
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Are you on their side? Do you think they're the good guys, or what do you think?
Where they were like boosting up the sales of GameStop, or what?
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters. Like, I don't know. I'm sure some people either lost money or are going to lose money on this.
Oh yeah.
But like, I mean, you should know GameStop closed a bunch of fucking businesses, like everywhere. You should know, probably shouldn't invest with them, or shouldn't expect a big, like return immediately if I'm investing with them right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if their stocks are going up, you shouldn't expect much.
Yeah.
If you are going to invest with them because you are interested in the company, like, yeah, I guess in the future they may go up. They just hired that new guy. I don't know who he was. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
But like, he worked for another corporation and like he did really well there, so they hired him here.
And they did just, they got the PS5 and the Xbox coming out. So, those are reasons to buy. I'm just really fascinated that a subreddit was able to convince a bunch of people to do something effective enough to affect some large hedge fund at that scale. I don't know if that's like something that could be repeatable,
Wow, that like happens all the time.
What do you mean?
Well, not like all the time, but it's pretty common. Like 4chan or Reddit would just start a trend of like, oh yeah, let's like make a prank, or let's like do something ridiculous. Like the old Pepe meme, or PP Pepe meme.
Yeah.
With the frog, and he's like now a terrorist thing.
Yeah.
Like that was 4chan Reddit fucking around. Like.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's their nature, is the kind of, let's do something kind of, meme worthy. But, I think the reason why it's news now is not like like we said, because they're doing this, which is their nature, it's what the internet does. I mean, it's far less about this subreddit and far more about just, how the internet works. This is the kind of, nonsensory of the internet sometimes. It just does what it wants, it's backed by popular demand, and sometimes that's it. But it's just that now it's like the money, it's never no one, obviously it's been in the news, and people who really buy into that kind of crap will be like, oh, look, Hillary Clinton said that this meme is a terrorist symbol, so it must be a terrorist symbol. But the general public and most people who are in their offices, scrolling through social media, looking at funny pictures and videos, they're not thinking that. And so, it never really was something that's mainstream and kind of like, oh, look at what the internet mobilized to do, or this niche group on the internet mobilized to do in order to, actually affect real world, institutions, whether they be cultural or, in this case, monetary. And I think it's really, I think the reason why it's news and it's so like, oh my God, look at what these people have done, because again, this is what they do, is because it's money. It's now money. It's like, oh my God, they trolled the money. Well, they troll everything. I mean, what did you think? They were gonna be like, oh, it's the sacred money. We can't upset the money gods. It's because it's worshipped at the idol that they want to actually make fun of it and commit the sacrilege and that sort of thing. That's my perspective. So.
Well, I mean, even before this GameStop thing, I think it was like earlier, like maybe a month ago, this streamer I watched on Twitch, he was like, oh, me and my friend bought like this cryptocurrency, and he like said the name of the cryptocurrency, and he was like, we just bought it as a joke, and like every now and then we'll be like, oh, it's gonna get big, like joking around with each other. After his stream, the cryptocurrency, which was like worth not even a penny, went up to like $5 after his stream, because like all of his watchers bought into it. Like, he wasn't encouraging them to buy it. He was like, I'm in no way encouraging you to buy this. I'm just telling you the story about me and my friends who bought into it, and like we find it as a joke. We just bought it as a joke. We don't expect any return from it. We're just like, we're the owners of this cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when the history books look back at it, if this is even worth, this could just be another non-story that's just like, in a pretty prosperous place, even in the time when, it doesn't seem prosperous. I mean, still, there's so little actual news that sometimes we're just grasping at straws, and this could be one of those straws, or it could be the beginning of a very, a very dramatic change to the status quo. And, I guess that cryptocurrency, I guess FOMO, or fear of missing out, that was kind of one of the first indicators that maybe something like this was coming. And it's funny because, this is basically the story of one group of gamblers fighting another group of gamblers. And, I'm not using gambler in a derogatory sense, but when you're speculating on assets, that's essentially gambling. You can be very good at it. You can have a lot of information. You can be a politician who actually has insider information. And, I mean, you're a politician, so it's not illegal, because of your position. So, and you're still gambling, So, it's not that I'm criticizing someone for doing that. That's perfectly fine. But you're essentially, what you have here is one group of gamblers fighting with another group of gamblers. And I think, the people who really don't have a dog in the fight and are just, they happen to come across the news presented in a way that give them a good amount of the facts, when they look at the situation, they'll see, you know, probably they're gonna lean more. And again, this is a person who probably doesn't have a dog in the fight. You know, just your average Joe. I would say your average Joe's probably gonna lean more towards the Redditors because, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of like a band of misfits. You're right. It's a bunch of people in their house because the pandemic closed their work, or people at work who are on their phone, you know, because it's slow because of the pandemic, and they're just on the internet and they're just doing this because they think it's fun, you know. And most people, I think, would resonate with that more than, you know, a bunch of Wall Street types who are crying because, you know, they basically were gambling and they had been gambling for a long time and no one really cared or watched them gamble, made a bunch of money doing it, and someone basically out gambled them, and now they're like, hey, well, gambling's wrong. And it's like, it's what they've been doing for a long time. So kind of funny. Again, go ahead.
Maybe new Wall Street traders, like people who are getting into like the stock market, might be upset about it. But like old school or people who've been doing it for a couple of years and know, they're not gonna buy into a stock and like have no idea of like, oh, why is this stock rising? Why is it falling? What like is the expected like thing for the future? Stuff like that. They know GameStop has been failing and it might go up in the future because they're hiring a new exec and like it's promising, but not immediately. So these new people who just bought in because like they heard the hype and like they're like, oh, I'm gonna make a bunch of money super quick. Like they just don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I don't like something like that. They don't even know what they're doing.
It's less about that because, you know, you're kind of describing someone who's more of an investor and they're not really a trader. And that's really where you have the warring going on. The investors are really just kind of on the outside looking in, like eating popcorn. Like, I mean, yeah, this is why we don't sell or, you know, stock. We buy, you know, and in that school you have people like Warren Buffett who are like, you know, just because something's liquid and you can buy and sell it doesn't mean you should. And you know, that's to each their own. That's a different school of thought. And you know, you have people that play both schools of thought who, you know, buy long term and then are also, you know, day traders. And then you have people who are strict day traders and they're just, you know, buying and selling. And those people, that's where you get into the speculative nature, you know, because if you're buying for the long term, you're not really saying, you know, oh, this trend in people's buying habits is gonna, you know, affect this business in the long term, or well, I mean, you kind of are, so I'm not gonna say that, but it's more like you're also looking at the infrastructure, and that's the primary thing that you would want to look for is, you know, the leadership and the product and the way the company is organized, different things like that would say this company is gonna stand the test of time. When you're speculating, to do that as much. You can look at a bunch of different things that may affect the market, you know, things that may have no basis in reality, like just fear, like random fear, like toilet paper fear. That can be something you buy and sell based off of. And again, if you have more knowledge, you may be better at buying and selling, but it's still, there's a level of gambling always. You know, even at the highest level where, you know, there's a politician who knows a little bit more, and there's buying and selling habits are public, so you can actually look at those and then buy and sell based off what they do. So there's a lot of that. But then you have like people on Wall Street who, you know, are all trading information amongst each other and then buying and selling, and so they're kind of like gambling, because again, you can have these outside effects where like the gambling is in the fact that they can't ever account for a bunch of Redditors deciding to do something. But they can trade information amongst each other and basically, you know, squeeze money out of some people in the market and into their pockets within the market. And you know, in this scenario, the thing that they do got done on them, so they're mad. So it's kind of funny. I kind of like it. Like I said, I don't know if it can happen again, but I guess we'll see. But yeah, I guess that's just kind of interesting that that's on the news. I think it's good news. I don't think it's bad news. I think it's good news. So yeah. But what else is up with you?
Been watching like I told you about that lady who like does financing and like she does Excel videos on TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
She shows you like how to work on Excel.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she also does like financing stuff, and she was like talking about how the market is with your housing and stuff right now,
Yeah.
and like everything. She believes that the market right now is like you can buy a house really cheap. Like everybody's getting foreclosed on, everybody's getting kicked out of their houses and shit. So like there's a bunch of properties that they need to sell that are really cheap right now. But like the thing she thinks is gonna happen, or she predicts, is that a bunch of big companies, a bunch of like wealthy investors are gonna come in and buy up a bunch of these cheap properties and then flip them or sell them or like rent them out and make a profit off of them. And then like things will be cheap for a while. Like if you buy a house right now, it's probably gonna be like pretty cheap. But like within a year or two or so, like the market's just gonna get really expensive and inflated.
I mean, here's the thing. I really take even the most solid people, with really, really good background in real estate, when they start talking about markets on a national level, I almost throw out what they say. I take it with such a grain of salt, because how are you going to compare? Like, where do they live? How are you going to compare where they live to where we live? There's just no way of doing that. They can tell us these broad trends, but really, if you're someone who this is a lot of money. At that point, I mean, it's funny, we just talked about the day traders. These people are investing like $100, through Robinhood. So, I hear some people on that argument saying, oh, well, these people, they're making these bets, they're going to lose their life savings. Who's betting their life savings because something that Reddit told them to do? Yeah, I fully believe that people are out there like, yeah, I've got an extra $100 because of stimulus. I'm going to give it to, something that Reddit told me to do. I fully believe I can do that. People give $1,000 to Twitch subscribers. So, that's not something that surprises me. But I think when you think about the amount of people giving up their life savings, that's a little bit harder to do. And the same thing is with the real estate. Like, you don't have as many people that are gung-ho about spending money when they don't have all the facts and are, just taking on face value what someone who, their job is to create content for people. And a lot of times that's the broadest market possible. So you create broad market content for, these cases that really, very hard to cast this broad brush. I mean, again, the California market is different from the Texas market. Even in the Texas market, Houston's not the same as Austin. Austin's not the same as San Antonio. San Antonio's not the same as Laredo. So, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I have trouble when they say, oh, this is going to be good, this is going to be bad. It's like, there's always opportunity. It'd be the same thing as saying, oh, well, the stock market's going to be bad here, it's going to be bad there. It's more like, it depends on you. And you should be listening to what they say, but, it really, sometimes you're going to listen to it just so that you can look at your scenario and says, that doesn't apply to me. And you should have a really open mind to, whether it can or can't, and sometimes you'll want it to, and sometimes you'll want it not to. But you know, you're still gonna have to do a lot of research when they say, oh well, this is gonna be like, right now's the time, but in a year it's not gonna be a time, or this is when this is gonna happen. Like, and there's a lot of financial people on like YouTube and TikTok and all those, different places where I like what they say. I like a lot of the information they give out, but again, they don't live in every single city in every single state in America, and so they really can't tell you, from city to city what's going to be better. In some places it's going to be really bad, in some places it's going to be really good, and there's going to be a mix of all of that scenario. So you know, yeah, that's my thought with that. And I guess that's, a funny thing, because maybe you really can't make content like on a big. Maybe you can. I don't know. I just find that interesting. I see that problem a lot with um, people who do that real estate investing, and when they're making content and they talk about trends and stuff like that, and I just hear them, and I'm like, this is really insightful, interesting information that may or may not apply to me, and I kind of feel like, I guess here would be my warning, is when I say, it may or may not apply to me, is my fear, and it's not a fear that I guess, I really have for other people, because, every person has to make their decisions, but here's a little, of the advice that I would give if it was a fear that, someone would want to look out for. So, you hear this, and it tells you, oh, this is gonna be, oh, watch out, scary stuff. Everyone's always, apt to hear something about scary stuff to know, oh, do I need to batten down the hatches? And so, and that leaves the market for scary stuff. So they say, scary stuff. And that tells you, oh, well, they're talking to me, so I need to, prepare for the scary stuff. And so I can't, go out and do adventurous stuff because scary stuff is coming. Winter's coming. And so you're waiting this whole time for this great storm, this great winter to come, and, make it so you were smart, you battened down the hatches, you stayed indoors. But if it never comes, then you missed out on all this opportunity. So take what they say, but also, if it doesn't appear that it's coming, I don't know. I guess that's a bad analogy. I guess I like I said. What was that?
Just take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, that's mostly it. But yeah.
I had a question.
Go ahead.
What do you think about, so you have a stable, let's say you're a person with a stable job or whatever, and you just save up money for your retirement or your 401k or however you plan to save money, and you retire at 65 or whatever. Do you, like you specifically, want to live in the US, or would you, like, I know a lot of retired veterans they have like the retirement fund from like being in the army and everything, so they'll like buy a house in the Philippines or whatever, like a really nice house that would be like probably $500,000 in the US, depending on where you live, or like how much land you got. And it's a really nice house in the Philippines, and it's like probably 100,000 or less. Really nice house, and you can live there with your retirement from the military or from whatever. It's really cheap to live there. You could even have a maid if you wanted. Like, a lot of people do this. Would you want to stay in the US with your retirement money, which won't go as far here because it's like the economy is not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like their economy, their money is worth less. So if you bring U.S. money into their economy, you can spend it more frivolously. Whereas if you stayed here, you would kind of have to budget more. You
Hmm.
wouldn't like be as well off if you retired there than here.
Yeah. So I guess because everyone's scenario is different, I'm gonna put it if it was me. And so you said the the scenario that I would be in is I retired, I'm 60. What is my retirement look like? You know, do I get how much money am I looking at every single month that I can live off of?
Well, like, the goal for everybody's retirement is, oh, I want $1 million. I want to save $1 million when I retire. Yeah, I'm gonna have $1 million. Like
Yeah,
that's what
okay,
everybody
that makes
wants,
sense.
right?
That yes, you're right. That's pretty standard, Dave Ramsey kind of thinking. I think the number is about like 2.3 to 2.7 million, somewhere around there. And that can be between 40, 50, 60, doesn't matter. Your investment, style may change a little bit depending on the retirement age, but yeah, that amount would sustain you for the rest of your life, and you wouldn't have to go out and break your back unless you like that hobby. And so, okay, in that scenario, would I personally, would I want to live in another country? I mean, at that age, it really would depend on what I've done in my life. If I've been in the US my whole life and never stepped foot outside the US, absolutely I'm going around the country. I mean, at that point, what do I have to lose? I mean, I've done it. I got to the halfway mark of my life. I want to go out and see some stuff, and I want to see how these other people are living. So yeah, I would definitely think about doing that. If I had already kind of seen out there how the world would live, and ideally, I would really like to. I'd really like to do it before I'm 60 because if you take care of yourself and you're 60, that's by no means an age where you're not fully capable of taking care of yourself. But God forbid something does happen, I think I would, and I could be wrong. Again, I don't know. I've never been. I don't know. What it's like to go to a hospital in Thailand. It could be awesome. It could only cost $7, and they have the highest level doctors imaginable. I don't know. So, but my understanding is the systems that I am familiar with. So if I was knowing what I know now, if I was older, I'd want to be here in case something happened. Now, if nothing happens, I want to be traveling. Um, so I don't know if I ever really, at that age either, want to stay rooted in one specific place. Um, that seems like the golden years where you kind of don't have to be rooted in a single place. I mean, if you have a spouse and they have the same kind of desires as you guys can travel together. But as far as little young ones in the household, they're all grown up by that age, presumably, and so you're pretty much kind of got this whole new revival within you to go and go on whatever kind of adventures you want to go on. And so with that in mind, I don't know that I'd want to be in any one place, whether that be in the U.S. or in a different country. I think I'd be like, okay, I want to be here for 3 months, and then I want to be here for 3 months. I might miss America for after 3 months living in Puerto Rico, and then want to go back to America, and then I might miss Europe. Being in America. Yeah, I know. It's a territory, so whatever. I meant to say something in South America, but that was the first one that came to mind. So yeah, but yeah, so yeah, I would want to travel a lot. That would be my which is kind of a cheat. That's a cheat that I used. It didn't really answer your question. It basically just took the best possible scenario. So there,
Yeah.
there you go. But what would you? Go ahead.
I don't know. I don't think I choose that economically I could be weller off in, or like better off in, not weller, better off in, but you have to have like a strong English, like where a lot of their people, if I don't know the native language, probably speak English.
Yeah.
So that it can live there.
Well, I think a lot of places now, they have signs and stuff.
Most other countries teach English as like a very good second language to learn. Like they start learning it when they're kids, whereas in the U.S. system, you only need it 2 years in your high school year, and like that's it. So nobody's proficient in two languages unless you were born like with immigrant parents, where when you were young, you like learned the second language and grew up around the second language. Nobody is good at it as an American,
Yeah.
Unless they specifically go to college or like go to extra lengths to do it. Whereas in other countries, like Japan, they start teaching English really young, like middle school, like they may not be fluent in it, but they understand basic sentences and stuff. Whereas like Americans will go down to Mexico and not understand like basic phrases.
Yeah. I mean, even by the time, and I would say 10, 20 years, I imagine they'll have better translating technology. So that'll help also. I mean, you can just pretty much have an AirPod in your ear that can hear what someone's saying and real time translate them and then actually tell them what you're saying.
Yeah, but also just going back, like, I think your plan of traveling around might be sustainable, but the cost of like just the travel itself would really cut into your expenses. Maybe not living costs or like food costs or anything, because when you get there, like you can get a nice hotel or a nice like rental property or whatever for like $200 a month. It's really cheap. Most of these like not as economically stable countries are pretty cheap to live there. And a lot of people take advantage because we're helping their economy and we're just like want to be somewhere pretty.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only trouble is the cost of flying
and
travel.
It's funny you said that, because I'm actually going to give you a little bit of an insight into the way I think, because of the way I basically came to that. So now you said it's me, so I didn't give a general kind of answer of here's what is the smartest thing to do, or what the average person would do or should do, or anything like that. I said what I would do. So knowing that that's what I would do, and I would know a long time before I did it that I would do it. I wouldn't rush into it. I would know how I would need to make it happen before I did it. And so that comes down to everything like finances, to my personal life and where I live and where I'm and where I'm gonna need to live and all that kind of stuff. And my diet, if it needs to be special because of at that point my age or anything like that, those are things that I'm gonna need to know going into that. How am I gonna solve these problems? So it comes down to problem solving. The way that I know that I would have to do that, and I don't even have to think about finances. Like like you said, it will cost more money to travel more. I mean, that's just the situation. If you want to go from one place to another, it just costs money. There's no way around that, no matter what. Whether you're doing it by horse or by plane. And so, going into that, you would have to think, well, if I had a lot of money, if I had like, $10 million or an endless amount of money, like, Jeff Bezos, and I just owned a big company, and, I never really, it's like, yeah, I have $1 billion, but really, I have Amazon, which is worth $1 billion, or that's just a weird analogy because it's worth like way more than that. But in that scenario, like if money wasn't a factor and you could just travel around where as you please, that'd be great. But even if you have enough to just retire, that doesn't mean that you can't still do that, even though it costs more. If it costs more and you're looking at your funds and you're saying, well, if I do this, X number of times, then this gets drastically depleted, almost as if I'm spending it twice as fast, because really you are. And so the question then becomes, well, if this can't grow, and in reality it can grow, you can look at how you would move around your finances. Now, at 60, you maybe don't want to do this as much, so it may be about position. And like I said, in my scenario, I'd be thinking about this for a long time. So I would be kind of leading up to this, knowing, okay, I should be moving some of my investments from this type of investment to this type of investment. Maybe something that's going to be a little bit passive, something that gives me maybe dividends that I can, pull from every month, or something that gives me, a rental income that I can have. And, it's the property itself has value and gains value, but the rental income itself is just profit that I get to keep. So I'd be thinking about how I can position myself to have those kind of investments instead of just investments that are going to gain value over time. And so, that's something that you would think about. And then also you think about the other side of that coin, which is the travel hacking element of it. And, you would think, okay, well, how can I, make it so I'm spending the least amount of money on planes and reservations, because the how you get there and where you stay are going to always be the most expensive parts of the vacationing and the travel and those types of experiences. So you'd want to look into travel hacking with credit cards and how you can basically sign up and use the reward coins. And at that point, there gets to a point where the amount of travel you do actually starts to help you gain the reward points and use the system to your advantage. And if you understand the system that all those basically credit cards have, you can. And again, understand is the key word there, because you'd have to recognize that you're doing this thing that if that people do and they don't understand, and then they get into debt, and you don't want to do that. Again, you're spending something with the intent to pay it back almost immediately, if not as soon as you would need to pay back to make it so that you can get the necessary benefits from taking out the credit in the first place. But getting those reward points is a process of travel hacking and using that to, basically reduce your expenses on travel. And then there are a lot of other ways to do it. There's, besides the rewards points, there's loyalty programs and different groups and stuff like that you can join that reduce costs. And so those are things I'd be thinking about. And the same thing would be true with where I stay, looking at how you can get into programs and loyalty programs with different, not just hotels, which you never want to cut something out. I mean, obviously, Airbnbs are a good reduction in cost, and, little tiny locally owned places that kind of aren't really on the internet, and they're just kind of hidden gems. Those are, I would say, the best that they're out of anything. But yeah, all those different scenarios I would be trying to put into my thought process of, I want to do this. It's just another problem. Here's how it's solved. I have these things in my favor and these things against me. I'm gonna move things around till I can get what I want out of what I got. And I don't really, when I think about travel now, again, this comes back to the age thing, and looking at it and saying, have I already traveled a lot and done that in my life? And so if I was doing it younger, I wouldn't really be thinking about travel hacking that much, because at that point it's a whole skill set. It's a whole knowledge base. That's why I said you have to really know what you're doing and understand, and basically price shopping and doing all this research that I just don't want to do when I think about taking a vacation. When I think about taking a vacation, I think give me the way that's gonna make me the happiest first and foremost. It's gonna be the least troublesome, which almost is the same thing, and then it's gonna be most effective, and then is cost effective. So cost effective is in the analysis, but it's it's kind of closer to the bottom than it normally would be. And so because I've already granted myself the ability to have this type of fun. To say, I mean, even if there was no way of getting a good deal, I would still say, hey, this is a bad deal, but here's my money because I want to have a good time. And so, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I get what you mean, and I think like you've reiterated it enough.
Nice.
Well, is there anywhere that you're interested in going in the U.S.? Like any vacation spots you want to travel to?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Maybe within the year or like after the COVID vaccine is more widespread and like vacation is more easily like acceptable within the U.S. Like right now, I really want to take a trip to the Grand Canyon and I want to go kayaking.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it's really close to where we are.
That's
like it's
true.
just a couple states over, and it's just a fun like thing to do. Maybe like a 3-day trip or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty fun.
That's true.
Is there any place you're kind of wanting to go right now, or?
I mean, honestly, when you said, do you want to travel? I was thinking, I want to go to every single state and see what every single state has to offer. I think that, especially the middle of the country, I think it's so slept on. I just imagine there's these little tiny towns that no one ever bothered, so they were, able to kind of do their own thing and blossom and stay afloat and kind of build these micro economies that allowed them to sustain themselves. And if you go there, it's kind of just like you're going to this bubble of the past where they maintain their architectural background and just different little niche things about their brick and mortar businesses and stuff like that. So when you said that was my answer to the question that you ended up not asking, but let me answer the question you did ask. So you said in the next year, I really miss live events. Right before the pandemic closed, I actually think this was, or right before the basically everything closed and the pandemic happened. I think this was right around February actually. So it was literally right as everything was basically coming to a forefront. And it's actually, I have a funny story about that. I went to my first UFC event, and I saw John Jones compete at light heavyweight before he moved. That was his last fight, I think. I can't remember if he fought him. That was his last fight at light heavyweight before he moved up. So I got to go see him fight Johnny Walker, and it was a great time. And again, this was right before the pandemic kind of. Not the pandemic, because that was already happening in China and everything like that, but the lockdowns happened. So I really miss live events from that. So I think when everything goes away, I would really like to go to a city that has a live event, and obviously my go-to live events are pretty much UFC fights. And so I really like when came back to the US and started having actual audiences for me to be able to go to there. Now, on top of that, I've always wanted to go back to Vegas again. I love it. I think it was an awesome place. There's so much to do, so many places and ways to spend your money, which I think is the exact perfect scenario for a vacation. It should just be a place that you can just throw money at, and it shouldn't matter. People should be on the outside who are just not there because they have to work and don't get to be on vacation. They should be saying things like, "Oh, that's a waste of money. That you shouldn't do that." But hey, they're not on vacation. You're on vacation, so you can give money to the performer on the street who's dancing and being stupid, and because it makes you laugh and makes you happy, you can do it. You can buy, you know, foods that are no different or better than other foods you can get other places, but they're themed. So you want it, you buy it. It makes you happy. You can buy little knick-knack paddywhacks, give a dog a bones, because they make you happy, but they're plastic and they're cheap. It doesn't matter. A vacation is just a great place to spend money and look at the best part of capitalism. And so I love Vegas for that reason. I don't even gamble or do half of the things that most people do when they go to Vegas. I just love the looking at just capitalism go. I just think it's awesome. It's really cool. It's like watching a beach. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the beach too. I like I said, I see every 50 states. So I'll see plenty of nature in places like Wyoming and Montana. But there's also something nice about just watching people go. You know, like it's just cool. They're just like moving and it's like every step they have to step a little bit faster because time is money. And I'm like, but it doesn't have to be. Like they're there on vacation, so it's just kind of funny. So I like that. I think that that's really cool. And on top of that, to have a UFC event, I would think that would just be really, really cool to get to go to Vegas. And they have a bunch of different live events, concerts, conventions, cool stuff. There's always, you know, an event to go to and have fun at. But to also be able to go to the UFC event as well would be cool too. So that's something that I'd want to do. If it came back, you know, by the end of the year or after the pandemic's basically over and people are vaccinated and all that. Yeah, do that. So, yeah.
Is there anywhere in Texas you want to go?
Definitely. I mean, I think Dallas and Houston are really fun vacation places. There's so much to do there. I really would like to get into. I think the Grand Canyon, what you said, that was a really good vacation spot. But you know, it's kind of like there's like three different categories I put vacations into. You know, the nature category, which is, you know, that's camping, just looking at nature for its sake, hiking, and that's where you got like Grand Canyon, you know, different places where you're just going off, you know, all-wheel drive for a long time just to see the landscape. But then you've also got city vacations where, you know, you've got Las Vegas in that category, and in that category you'd also have places like Houston and Dallas, and then also, I guess in a category all up on itself, I would also put the foodcations. And I would also put Dallas and Houston in those categories. But in that category, you can also put little tiny towns. Like something that I've always thought would be cool is to basically, like, I'm sure diners, drive-ins, and dashes is probably on some platform, but you know, just get it and be able to go through it and like look and like, I'm sure they have like a book or something at this point, but like map out all the different locations and just like make a road trip based on all the different locations that Guy Fieri went to and diners, drive-in, and I don't know the whole name, like diners, drive-in, and dash or whatever. But yeah, to be able to go ahead.
I think it'd be cool to visit like one of the Amish communities.
That would be pretty cool.
They're like an ecosystem of themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. Blast from the past. And I imagine their, you know, whatever they produce, it has to be pretty cool, you know, because they're producing it just on their own. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely true. But, yeah, I would go to, I mean, there's actually a lot of places in Texas I would go right now. You know, there's a lot of nature.
Recently in Houston, like there's this Korean barbecue place, like authentic Korean barbecue place where you grill your own meat and everything.
Mhm.
That opened up in Houston. that I saw recently. That
Yeah.
seemed really cool.
I saw Houston had this really cool, basically art exhibit also. That I mean, it's basically like a bunch of really psychedelic imagery and different stuff like that. So it's really cool. Um, so that's something I think it was Houston, but that's something I'd wanna
I
definitely
saw,
do.
I think it was New York. I'm not positive actually where it was.
Mhm.
I don't think it was Texas.
Mhm.
But anyways, it was like these hallways and rooms and stuff,
Mhm.
and they were like decorated, like everything was decorated like cake, like the walls, and they would make like weird passageways that were like just you were inside a cake and everything was cake.
Mhm.
It was weird. I
That
was like
sounds
watching the video.
like a nightmare. That sounds like one of those terrifying videos where a person goes to bite, like they go to poke something with a fork, and it turns out to be cake. Like, I literally have nightmares about that. I wake up in the night screaming because I'm having a dream where, like, there's like a table and everyone's having a fancy feast and they're happy and oh ha ha ha. And then it's just like, hey, where's the cake? And they're all just turn and look at me and they're like, you're the cake, Armando. They just they just all poke at me with a fork and they take me apart and I'm cake. I'm cake. I'm made out of cake. And they just eat me. Right there. Cake. I'm sorry. This world is cake.
And then you come to the dog, and
What?
like they go with a spoon, and like it switches to like a really realistic cake that's like in the same shape as the dog, and they get into it.
Mhm. And yeah, so
That's like
I only ever get to that part and then I wake up screaming in the night. So for you to say how I would feel about this art exhibit where they're bringing my nightmare to life for me to experience in this reality, I would never want to do that. Okay?
it sounds like a opportunity to overcome fear.
It,
Sounds like a way to improve yourself. Actually, I feel like now you have to go.
the thing is, the fear is legitimate. It's not misplaced. Because cake is a weak building material. I mean, what really can you make with cake? A house? A building? Shoes?
It's gonna make a whole art exhibit of rooms of cake. So I would think it is a strong enough material that you can walk through a whole installation and secret passages of cake.
No human could ever live their life as cake. Okay? They'd be turned to mush. They get they get beat down by weather. And so that's not irrational to think to say, well, if I was cake, I would be destroyed. And so obviously world where I'm just that's gonna happen, I'm just gonna be destroyed because I'm cake and that's the end of all cake. Um I don't understand why you wouldn't be afraid. So, I guess I'm not gonna let go of that fear. If I do, I think I'll turn into a madman. I think I'll go crazy because well, maybe it'll make me more powerful because the man who fears nothing maybe has nothing to fear or something like that. But I don't want to pay to experience that. It seems like absolute dread. You know?
Well, I've already got his tickets, so
Damn.